start. Okay. So we'll be starting in 1 minute. Yeah, I just wait for some other people to come up. Okay. I think. Hey everyone, good to see you online. So this Coohom Live is about SketchUp. Specifically, not really how to model in SketchUp, but some tips and tricks that are, I think, will be really helpful if you use a SketchUp model and a render in Coohom. So today I'm going to demo a brief workflow and some of what you need to do and what not doing this workflow. And we're going to be starting in like a minute or so. Just waiting for more people to come. Okay, let's just start them. So first of all, I want to show you guys a really good one of my favorite architecture house. It's called Farnsworth House. I think it's one of the masterpieces of the modern architecture. It's classic, and today I'm going to use the model of this house. And don't worry, I'll share the models with you guys in the link after we post the live video. But we're going to use this house as an example and showing how do you bring an architecture element from SketchUp to Coohom. So let's just get started. First, everyone knows how to find the models in the warehouse, in the SketchUp warehouse, I assume. So here I already have a downloaded model. So in the files in the SketchUp, I'm going to choose the millimeters architecture. And I'm going to open the files that I've downloaded and examine it. Okay. So there you go. This is a really good model I find on SketchUp Warehouse. So let's just spin around and take a look at this model. One of the things that's been a really good example is it doesn't have a whole lot of the material and the texture on it. And let's starting by understanding how Coohom accepts the SketchUp model by importing a very simple element, for example, this chair. So if I would like to import this chair, which I want to do as a guinea pig testing right now, I want to separate it first. So I'll make a copy, Control C, and then I build a new model and paste it. And you guys can already see that is kind of up to scale because we have a scale model right here. And then if I were just to bring this model directly into Coohom and render it, which will be fine as well, but you guys might be wondering, how does Coohom read the materials in SketchUp? So there's only three things that Coohom reads in SketchUp materials. First is the reflection, Okay, it's back on again. All right. So where did we left off? The chairs. Okay. So I'm gonna do it again. Okay. So we have the chairs over here. I'm going to show you guys if we don't do anything and then we just want to import the chairs and what it is going to look like inside the Coohom. So I already saved the chairs. Let's go back to Coohom and then go to your personal library. And this is where manage your uploads. So let's say upload model. And go to the chair testing. And so in Coohom, you wanted to specify which model category is so it understands what it is. This column, the second one, you just have to choose furniture. I usually just do others. I personally haven't tried other like categories in this because to me, the things that affect how the model behave inside the Coohom is its locations. So this one is going to be important. So if you want it to be attached to the floor, we want to choose floor furniture, and vice versa. If you pick ceiling appliances, it's going to attach to the ceiling once you apply it. Same for wall decor. If you do wall decor, I think it's going to attach to the wall automatically, which it would be kind of cool as an art installation. But and this time we're just going to try floor furniture. Submit a model, and let's continue upload. Just to be clarify the model we just uploaded, I'm going to change the name of the chair to chair 2, even though it is the same chair, right? So let's go back to the project, which is the project I just created here, and dragging this model. You'd have to go to your account, then go to your upload. This is where you will be able to see your latest upload. So as you guys can see, the chair 2 is already here. So let's drag and put it in. Let's go to 3D space, which you can really tell that this has been imported correctly because it has attached to the floor. And you guys might be curious, okay, what are the materials that look like inside Coohom versus SketchUp? So we can actually do a test rendering. So this is something I always like to do, is use the Q and E's on the keyboard to adjust the height of the camera and just do a really quick daylight test rendering. I'm going to use HD here. Yep. So you see the materials. So while we're waiting for the renderings, and another interesting aspect which I did a model here just to illustrate is the size limit of the model is 30,000 or 3,000 millimeters. I think it's, I just see the model. So this is how big that you model import from SketchUp can be for Coohom. If we measure it, yeah, it's 30,000 millimeter. That's the parameters. It doesn't mean that Coohom cannot contain a larger model. You of course can build a much larger space, but this is the upload limit for SketchUp. Kind of put it into context, you'll see how big it is. Let's create a new one. So compared to this person, this is how big is the model. So I don't imagine that you having a case of literally having to bring a model as big as this. This is just like a fun test I did. But they are a trick that you can do if you really want to bring something bigger than this into the Coohom, which you will just have to scale it back with it under the 30,000 millimeter, and then you bring it to Coohom, and in the Coohom, which if I look at the chair right here, you can actually scale the chairs. So that's how you get actually a bigger model if you really want to. So let me just go back and then see, since it's a furniture and it's the floor type furniture, it has a height above the floor which you can adjust. This is really convenient. So let's talk about the materials and how you actually apply materials. I'm going to try to illustrate using this chair model inside SketchUp. I'm going to use different color to show you. Okay. So if you open this model, usually SketchUp model are contained within groups. And then the Coohom reads this material by something called a material ID. Essentially is Coohom consider whenever you have the same materials, any surface has same materials in SketchUp, Coohom will apply that same materials and group them all together. So for example, this seat cushion, they should have an entire thing as one material. Okay, so if I were to apply material here, I'm going to show really quick. You have to, the first thing you like to know is to check what's in model, what's in the material panel, and then you would, let me just do drag and drop. So let's say this thick cushion has one material, and I'm gonna do something funky. I'm gonna try to make this chair ribbon as another material. And the rest of the chair as one material. And those two left out, I'm going to make them as one material as well. So let's see how this actually behave and perform. And same for the leg, you know. If you want the leg to be the same material, this is a classic chair, so you want it to be a stainless steel. You know, go ahead and make all of them. Control A, and then you paint it in SketchUp with the same material. So one of the best workflow I recommend for power user of SketchUp is what you will see how much difference does it make when you use SketchUp materials compared to Coohom material. Coohom material is just so much better because it has so much more parameters in it. So in SketchUp, you don't really have to worry about the materialities of your furniture. The only thing you have to worry about is the UV map, which we'll get to later. So after we cover this, let's save it again and import that back. So while we import that back, let's look at the rendering of this chair. So let's see, you see it rendered all right. It's like it showed all the materials and the seat cushion is white and the material color didn't change. So this is what we'd expect from anything imported from SketchUp. And if we upload again, let's go back to the personal library and upload the model. To be noted, this is exactly the same chair. So same, we're gonna go to furniture, go to others, and make it, wanna make it wall decor. Let's just try. Okay, and I'm going to change the name of this chair to chair 3. Okay, I'm gonna try to refresh it. Go to my account, go to uploads, and let's throw in this chair. So I believe this chair has already been scaled up. So let's put them back into the same scale. And let's go back to 2D views. I'm going to put them together. So see, if this is a wall decor, see how it behaves. it automatically snaps to the wall. Like it just does this. So I'm going to try to move it back a little bit.
And also you can hold on control.
Hold on control, okay. Oh, okay, this is a nice trick. That's why I got Sheila in here. So those two here, let's add the materials here, material editor. Okay, so now we're getting to the part. Oh, hi. Hi, Kwan. Now we're getting the part that we're starting to, apply Coohom materials. So, let's say we want a metal like stainless steel. Okay. We don't want patterns. We just want a mirror stainless steel. Drag and drop. See how the entire yellow area has been selected and applied material. And see, it's already looking pretty realistic with the reflection. So then see, this part of the railing does not apply because we painted in the different colors. That's why we've been able to, let's say, emboss, let's say a browns, just to make this one slightly different. Or let's make something like maybe pure metal. Let's like make it slightly different. Okay, so I have this. And for the seat, let's put in leather. So I'm just gonna put in a very typical generic leather here. And you can see you can also control the scale of the leather already. Scale it up and down on this model. And we still hit down. And let's do a rendering of those two. I'm just using the WSAD2 and then let's render it. Let's render in 4K. Okay, so that's actually how you control the materials in your SketchUp model. Also, something worth checking, this is the SketchUp trick, is before you import things, you always want to make sure that you don't have redundant materials or groups inside your model. You do that by going to model information, into the statistic, and you purge unused. See? And a purge was actually inside a model that's being used. So you can have a clear sense of how many types of materials are inside your chairs. So in this case, we actually have like 1, 2, 3, and the chair bottom is a different material type. We have like 4 types. And then we have probably another 1 or 2 materials because of the human figures. But that's really about it. You want to keep it as clean as possible. And then when you render, you actually notice some people has told me about when the SketchUp model, when you bring in the Coohom, when you render it, it doesn't look as good. But I also would like to remind you guys, the rendering qualities equals the model qualities in SketchUp. And because of the nature of the SketchUp models, the edges is not going to be that smooth. Even if I zoom in, you see the angles here, because it's a faceted model, and also the models is here. So those model will not look as good because the Coohom model are originally from 3S Max, so it just has naturally so many more mesh surfaces. So that's it about bringing, which is part in one furniture. So I'm gonna demo something a little bit bigger, which is an entire house. Let's go back. And let's see, our Coohom render is just really fast. And the 4K render has already done. So let's see how much the difference does it make using the Coohom material. Do you see the reflections and the different colors we have on the chair model? This is also kind of cool. And you see the original SketchUp model, even though you could apply some reflectivities, which is the cushion seat here, but you will never get to that amount of the details compared to applying materials in Coohom. And so as long as you have assigned a good, material mappings in your SketchUp model, like which areas are what materials, and you can drag into Coohom, and it's very easy to apply. So that's my recommended workflow. Let's go to something much bigger, architecture now. And I'm open up to questions. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments too. I'm going to open the house model that we have. Okay. So before even, importing this house model, let's do one thing. Remember the thing about the size testing? You want to make sure that, I think this one to me has exceeded the sizes of 30K millimeter. So let's go here, copy that. I'm going to do really dumb size testing. See, so we barely get there. Like this is barely fit. If we go back to the top view. And let's go to style. And this is pretty much as we can expect from, like, we are right at the edge. So this is like the biggest you can do, right? And just clear understand this. This is a rule of thumb. The reason I've tested before we can bring this model all right, because the 30 millimeter tubes, 30,000 millimeter tubes apply to one edge of the surface, which in our case, if you go to the top view, if you measure this, we don't have any edges that's longer than this, even though combined we have the entire house model, which is slightly over, right? But we don't have any single continuous edge that's exceeding this limit. For example, for this one, you wouldn't be able to do it because this edge already exceeds the limit. So hope that makes sense. So after testing, I was like, okay, this model is good to go, right? Oh, it's not. And then let's do some cleanups. Let's first delete the landscape elements. And I would also recommend deleting the furnitures as well. So, because you can always import and change the materials of the furnitures. And once you are, inside the Coohom. So I'll delete all those furnitures. And same thing as those current too. So after a round of this cleanup, I'm going to show you what would happen if you bring the entire model into the Coohom without separating it. All right. I already deleted everything, and let's unhide the roof. I just hide it before, and check if there's any other irregular stuff in there. And I check how many materials inside the model. So this shows how many materials IDs are there, and this also shows when you import it in Coohom, that Coohom will recognize there's so many materials in there that the Coohom can replace with its own texture. So what I want to do is do regular cleanup, go to the model information. You always want to purge on use. And this will save you a lot of time, like, honestly. So see, we are down to like 9 materials. This is what we want to get. We imported Coohom. And I'm not going to, now I'm going to save it as with roof, okay? And we can upload it now. So this is the one that we just worked at. It's open. So for all the house models, still, I'm recommend just put in a furniture catalog to treat it as a furniture. So one thing to be noticed that when you have like a painting, a wall hosted element, it will not recognize the imported house model, the walls inside the house models as a wall element because the entire model is considered as a furniture, right? We don't currently have that catalog yet. And you want to choose floor furnitures since the house is going to be on the ground. So let's submit the model, continue to upload, and let's go to our projects. Let's view projects. So let's just enter it. So we have a ceiling of this room. I think from the previous tutorial, if you want a room that does not have ceiling, you just need to change the name of the room to a terrace. And then I'm going to show you guys what would happen if I just bring in the house model in directly. So this is a house model with roof, right? Great, let's just bring it in. You're like, whoa, what has happened? This happened because the model Coohom are looking at it as a furniture, so it's looking for a place to snap to. And when your room is really small, it does this. So let's go back. And I don't think we haven't correctly imported yet. So we want to make sure that the room is big enough to accommodate this model first. Okay, let's make it bigger. I think what was the dimension before? It was 30K. So I do 35. And let's do this way. Let's just drag it up a little bit. And then you can place your model there, right? Let's go back to 3D view. And this is your model. And there's another thing we can do is also we make this wall as a dwarf wall. Just like that. This is some of the standard practices we have. Dwarf walls. So you can change the height to like 1 millimeter. That you don't even see it. Go ahead to 3D view, and this is our import. The one thing about this import, you see there is a face missing, is because you have a backwarded face inside SketchUp. For those who are not familiar with the concept of the the front and the back face of a surface in SketchUp, I'm gonna do a really quick twist, and you can see it. So if I were to go back to here, the style, to go to editing, this shows what the back colors are like of the surface. So if it changes colors to something much more visible, and let's switch to the style, and you will see, oh, this surface is actually backwards. And let's go back to here and look at a Coohom. Yeah, Coohom also knows it is a backward surfaces. So this this is why it's causing some of the missing surfaces display inside the Coohom. But no worries, this will still render. I believe this still render, but it will just cause visual confusions when we're actually working within the model. Okay. Another thing that I think the best practice is for bringing the house model, which I didn't demo here, is you usually want to separate the roof and the ceiling. So here's why. If you go back to the plan view, you see where you like to put in furniture, but you can't because you can't look into it because it's already being imported as a whole. So the only thing you have to add the furniture's inside space is to actually go in the space and drop furnitures like here, right? So go back to the front and back surfaces and how do you fix it? So after you set your back color, right, and you saw it, it's like, okay, this is backwards, looks weird. It's very simple. You just right click and reverse surface. So when you see a model, you want a model to have 0 back surfaces outward. Like here, this is also a back surface as well, you know. And the bottom two, and also this two is kind of missing. So that's why it explains when you look at a Coohom, it felt like, oh, this area looks a little bit weird because it's not showing that volumetrics, the roof here. It is because of the same reason. It's just backward. Okay. So I'm gonna save you guys a little bit of time here. I'm not gonna go through this because I already have a separated model, which I'm going to show you. So what I did here is I've actually created this model that has no ceiling and I imported it. Okay, so let's try how this would look different. Let me try. Delete, and then let's drag this model. Just go to plan view, so it's a bit easier back into it. And you go to the 3D view. And for the roof model, I'll just show you. This is entirely its own ceiling. So the trick is if I go to the front view, right? If I draw a surface here, this is the ground. See, backward surface again. So this is the front surface and back surface. If I go to the front view, you see this roof, I did not touch it. I leave it right where it adds its own model. So we'll go back to the model with ceiling. You see that I leave it right where they are. So this is going to be really helpful when you bring the model because the model will kind of stay where exactly they were in the SketchUp model in the spatial relationship to its own, the bottom part of the house. So since I have separated those two, and in here I've also brought in is as a ceiling elements, right? So I have the ceiling floor, we have the floor elements, and what I did is I play with different type of settings. So so far the settings I find there's both way. You can import it as a ceiling. So let's see, this is the element I just imported, and this is categorized as ceiling as I named it, and just drag it in. And this was actually cause a problem.
The roof height.
Yes. Right? So you're like, what the heck? I just created this, and why I wasn't able to, I was only able to adjust it that much from the space. I got confused at first, but I realized because everything has a room height. And also the reason when you import it as a ceiling element is you would only be able to see it in the ceiling view. Sometimes even not. Yeah, like, this is really annoying. Let's see. Replace it. Okay. Let's see if it disappeared. Right.
You go back to the floor plan. Then change the room height.
Yeah. So like you really see that this element when you import it as a ceiling, and it would actually disappear, not when it will only appear when you only look up, right? This is something I discovered too, and you were able to see it in the ceiling plan. So let's just drag it over. And let's go back to the room height issue. So this height was actually determined by the room height. And I want to illustrate something real quick, which is the room height should actually be the height to the bottom of the ceiling pieces. What do I mean by that is, if I were to do a quick illustration, see, this is the bottom of your ceiling, and then and this is the ground. You really want your room height to be set with this and plus the height of the ceiling. So this is your room height. Because when you imported the ceiling element, is in Coohom, it automatically recognizes that this is the ceiling that attached to of your room height. So if you have the dimension here, the height of the ceiling, and you have your room height, that's the two dimension you will need to actually import and have perfectly snapped ceiling that you don't have to worry about and fiddling around inside Coohom. So let's do that. So I'm going to do a really quick measurement. So in here, the height is actually I'm actually going to make it slightly easier to measure. It's actually 50, it's 51 to be exact, right? So that's 510 millimeters. And if we go back to measuring this entire thing, oh, height. We actually are developing that. So thanks for bringing that up. And this is 501. So this is 500. What is that? 5,010 millimeters. Sorry, millimeters messed me up, and then I used to working in this. So after I explain this, let's go back to our Coohom and let's set the room height. Let's go to our floor plan. Go to the room. So this is where we want a room height. We want a room height at 50 and 10 millimeters. And I go to our ceilings. We drag this thing all the way to the floor. And you'll see the maximum you can get is 4,500. Why is that? It is because the entire ceiling, the thickness of the ceiling added to, which is H1 here, added to, subtracted to the room height here is 4,500. Wow, can't believe I'm doing this. It's like doing math. Does it even make sense? So in this way, you know that you get the perfect ceiling height in there. Okay, let's just go back to the view. And what's nice about this workflow is you go back to the floor plan view. It's like, oh, whoa, I can start placing furniture here. Sorry, I have to like make it snap. Let's just place a chair here into 3D view. And then this chair, see, is snapping to the surface here. And it will be exact because this is another benefit of using Coohom's stock models is it automatically snap to the surfaces below, right? I'm not sure why this does not snap. I think this should be snapping too. Okay, it's snapping as well. Okay, sweet. And then this is what it looks like when you actually import it in, when you separate the roof, because it just gives you so much flexibilities that you can placing models on the plan views without actually hiding the roof, right? So with no further ado, I want to also want to show you guys. Let me just go back. Actually, I already did some pre-renderings to show you guys the differences of the original models I did. I have a similar project which I use the exact same model, I promise. And I have some renderings to see how that model is starting to look different once you start applying Coohom materials in there. Okay, so let's just go to the library. So this is the same exercise I did. And on the right side, this is the original SketchUp model, which I did few material ID testings. And let's see the difference between the Coohom materials and the original SketchUp materials. So you'll still get the texture map, everything, you know, but you just won't get that much of the effort. So this is when I start to bring the model and start rendering it. And then slowly, this is when I actually added roof. So see, I didn't get a perfect roof because I didn't know it was the room issue that's causing that. So after I fix that, what you're gonna get is actually something rendered like this. And this is when you start getting to, okay, then you can use, you know, go out with the materials you can do using the same technique, which, you know, let me just show you real quick. Enter the tool, you know, and you click the model. You're like, see, this is the perfectly landed models. And then you go to the material editor. And you're like, see, this entire surface is considered to be glass. And to be really honest, you can apply anything. You can apply like a texture to it. And Coohom will be like, okay, let's do it. And then the entire thing will be texture. So after changing this, you see it still reads the transparency, reflection and refraction from SketchUp. But if I once I switch to the Coohom material, it just looks so much better after I down to the class. And I want to show you, I can also change the materials on the floor. Right, I already changed the floor on the floor, and if you didn't know, if you noticed, I also changed the materials that are in the wood cabinetries inside. And after filling with that, I was like, okay, also in this one, I also changed the materials on this roof elements just to be powder coated paint. That makes a subtle differences that are starting to grow your design from SketchUp into Coohom. And if you look into it, you can start to see like details of those painted and textures. And then this is an interior view, which you see some of the reflection here. But in this session, we won't cover too much of the interior view that renders in this. But I do want to show you guys how I did the lightings in this. How do you get the sunlight? It's through the custom lighting setting. So I'm going to recreate it here. If you enter the tool, okay, and then you go to render, and you can save views. It's right here. You can save the current view that you like, and then usually you will go to the light settings. If you just simply choose, this is why if you simply just choose an outdoor lighting template, it does not give you control of the sunlight, like where you want to hit it, and also it automatically applies lights. So what you want to do is to customize, and you pick a lighting template, say an outdoor reality daylight, and you just rename it yourself. So this is V1, just name it. Okay, so here, if you go back to the 2D plan and go to sunlight, you see the sunlight is default like turned off. If you turn on the sunlight, this is when you start to play around. This is actually the fun stuff. So if I change the sunlight orientation, you see a very different render result because the sunrise light is gonna cast very different shadows. I'm going to save real quick and I'm going to render. So you guys see this is actually gonna render one in 4K because Coohom just really fast with those 4K renderings. And yes, and then when actually a little bit, I'm gonna show you if you want to make things look a little bit lighter. What I usually do is there's two ways, but I do like the rectangular light and drag and drop. I'm gonna show you what a difference does it make when you actually do that. So a lot of time you don't have to cover an entire space. But like if you just do a little narrower tips, and you see the lighting actually have its limit, which is really common in rendering plugins, because the ways it calculates lighting, it cannot give you a lighting at an infinite length. So this is the limits we have. So after I put in this light, and I'm gonna put another one here, and we can do some lighting testing here. Okay, and then I didn't touch any brightness setting here, and let's say save, and we'll do the same view and see how that affected the interior space. Okay, so I'm gonna do 4K. Maybe do HD here. Let's see different qualities. So if you look at this one, the lighting and the shadowing, it is so much more different than this one. So this will be ready pretty soon. And anything from the audience? Anyone has questions? Right now we're just waiting for few lighting setups. And let me see if I forgot anything in terms of uploading the SketchUp model. Do you want to add on anything for SketchUp to Coohom workflow? Okay.
It's
Okay. Was that a lot of content?
alright.
I think it's like, let's just see how the lighting's affects, and then I might have another document. What else? Let me see. We have this. We talked about the grouping. Oh, another thing about grouping. Coohom collapse all the groups. That means no matter how many like separate groupings you have inside your SketchUp model, it does not care. It just group the things by its material type. So even though, see, these 3 stairs are at completely different, how do you say it, grouping types. It's a separate group. It's a separate model. We imported Coohom because it is the same material. It will apply the materials to all of them at the same time, as if this is a group. This is how Coohom sees it, right? And another thing I think I guess might be worth mentioning is or we can save it to next time, is the mapping of the group. So if we explode it, okay. To go to the materials. So see this mapping of this material, which is the same thing as we change it to 200, right? It changes everything. And to be aware that once you change this UV mapping, it will affect, actually Coohom will recognize this mapping. So you apply the model, if you switch to different tile, that if you have the 200 mapping, UV mapping here, the tile will be bigger. This is something that will be applied to if you're something that you just want to, let's get an eye drop to here. If you have like a solid colored wall, right, and you want to edit it, this one also have a mapping embedded into the solid color, right? I want to be aware, guys, to be aware of this because let me just do it a different color. This 200 mappings, you have to be aware of that if you apply, say if you want to apply wallpaper here, Coohom is going to use that 200 by 200 centimeter. And because there's a limit to scale our textures and patterns in the Coohom material, and you will have to adjust this and re-import again, because this is how Coohom reads the UVW mapping. This is where it gets information from. So let's see if we can have like, so you see that there is like a white lighting showing here. This looks a bit unnatural here because you have to play with the temperature of the lights and the lighting intensity setting. But that will be an entire another session. But I think for this Coohom Live, we really want to just cover the workflow between the SketchUp model and then all the tips that we just covered. Clean up your model, make sure that the materials are as clean as possible, and also there's no backward faces, which is the tricks I show you here, which is using the backward color changes to something that's very obvious. You can see backward colors everywhere. This is backward. This is backward. So and then also use the material ID smartly to assign materials in SketchUp and apply the materials in Coohom. And the last tip would be, to summarize, is to separate import. You import your roof and your house model separately, and once you import your roof, change your room height. Change your room height, and remember this diagram. You gotta calculate room height and measure that. I know it sounds a little bit daunting, but down the road, it will save you a lot of time trying to figure out what has happened and tweaking the height. And think that is pretty much what we have covered today. Yep.
Yeah. So I think maybe others may just watch the replay and leave us a message. Maybe in our next slide, we will cover all those questions. Yeah.
Yeah, shoot us questions in the chat. Also, we'll be posting on Facebook and YouTube and our IGTV. Leave the comments as well. We are also, you ask and we have listened. So we are always trying to curate the content based on our polls that we did in YouTube community and Facebook community. And again, thank you everyone for,
trying our product and creating using Coohom. We believe everyone should be empowered by our tools. That's about it for today. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. There's like 6 people.
Yeah, right.
Bye.
See you next week.
Next week. Later. Bye.